Now let's imagine that we were given a task. The task is to loop through, or in this case, go through a range of numbers, let's say between 1 and 1,000. And as we go through this range of number, we need to find all numbers that are multiple of 2 or 3 or 10 or so forth. Let's start with multiple of 3, which means that these numbers are divisible by 3 and the remainder is going to be 0 if they're divisible by 3, right? So how do we go about doing that? Well, from what we know so far, we could use an if statement, right? We can say if 1 is divisible by 3 and the remainder is 0, then that number should be printed. Next one, another if else 2 is divisible by 3 and go so forth, right? Or we can use a when expression. Remember, in computing, really, we are trying to manipulate data, and we have certain tools available to us. One of which is conditions, which is branching and so forth. But there's another one if we want to repeat certain tasks. In this case, we are repeating this iteration process of going through certain range of numbers and finding things. Okay, so there is indeed such structure called a for loop. So a for loop is one of the most powerful structures in your programs. So how do we set up that? Well, we say for. As you can see, our IDE is going to help us. If you hit enter, then you can see now inside of parentheses, we can pass the expression inside there. So what is that we want to do? For starters, we want to say something like this. We want to say I in, and we give the range. If I say 1 dot dot, let's say 3, and then inside of this code block here, I can say print I, for instance. Okay, just a quick example here. So what's going to happen here is that this for loop is going to go ahead and look at this range. I'm going to say, okay, as I go through from between 1 to 3, I'm going to print that I. So which means this I is actually going to be the counter between 1 and 3. Let's run and see what's going to happen. Right, it says 1, 2, 3. Now, if I wanted, I could say print ln to put all of them in a different line. Go ahead and run. And you can see 1, 2, 3. Okay, very good. So that is the simple for loop here. So we have here the I, which is in this case is the counter or the index in this case. And then we have the range. So as we go through, this is looping through, goes through, it's going to go ahead and print the I, which in this case is the counter index. As we go first time, it's going to be 1, second time, 2, third time, and so forth. That's why we see between 1, 2, 3 there. Okay, very good. Now, on to our exercise. First of all, we want to go through or loop through a range of numbers. We said between 1 and 1,000. So I can say, just change this to 1,000 like this. Okay, so if I go ahead and run, we should go through between 1 and 1,000. There we go, very fast. Depending on your computer speed, this will be really fast or a little bit slow. Okay, there we go. So, but next, we've done the first part. The next part is we need to check to see if the numbers as we loop through, there are any numbers that are divisible by 3. Or are multiples of 3. Divisible by 3 or multiples of 3 is the same thing. What do we do? Well, think about it. We can put inside here an if statement, right? I can say if, right? I. Now, how do we check if something is divisible by something? Well, we use the modulo operator we saw earlier. I can say then %. I want to see if it's divisible by 3 or if it's multiple of 3. I can say 3 is equal to 0. What I'm saying here is that each number as we go through is going to check, okay, if that number is divisible by 3, and we know it's divisible by 3 when? It's divisible by 3 if there's no remainder. So if remainder, once we divide it by 3, is 0, then that number is divisible by 3, okay? So in this case, I can actually put in one line, or I can put like this, because it's just one statement right after the if statement, so that works. I don't have to put inside of a block, code block there, curly braces. This works as well. Or, like I said, I can simplify this, put this in one line like this. So what I want to print? Well, I want to print a message that says, I, this number that we're showing at this point, this index, is multiple of 3. Let's go ahead and run. There we go. So now you can see that indeed this is working. 3 is indeed a multiple of 3. 6 is multiple of 3. 9 and so forth, all the way to 999. Right? And if I want, I can say else, just print something that says like this. So for any other number that it's not multiple of 3, we're just going to have 3 dashes like that. Let's see. Okay, so 981 is not multiple of 3. Oh, actually, let's see. Let's say print ln so that it doesn't pollute our structure there, because that it's very confusing. Okay, there we go. So for every dashes you see, so we have 1 and 2, they're not multiple of 3, that's why they have dash dash. And then we have 4 and 5, we have 7, and 8, and so forth. All right, so there you have it. So this is very powerful, as you can see, because we can put any range here and we can use if statements to control the flow of our program, right? So at this point, you can start seeing the power that we have here, right? Now, this is the most simplistic way of showing a for loop and if statement together, right? Now you can start looking at other things you can do. You can, for instance, check if that number is multiple of 3 and or if that number is an odd number and go from there, right? So think of other cases that you can actually check here with an if statement. If you want, you can also use a when. That works totally fine as well. Okay, I hope you're getting excited. This is real cool. This is real cool. All right, see you next time.